Thank you, Chair. Just picking up on the issue of Indigenous procurement. Dalian's identity as an Indigenous company as part of the set-aside for Indigenous procurement is obviously absurd and a manipulation of the intention of the policy. The intention of the policy, presumably, is to give opportunities to Indigenous Canadians to be able to work in jobs that flow from government procurement. But this was a company that simply received contracts and subcontracted them, taking a cut along the way. There were no opportunities created for Indigenous people as a result of this. You mentioned a registry or a list of Indigenous companies that are used when considering this 5% set-aside. What percentage of those companies actually create jobs for Indigenous peoples in Canada?
Thank you very much for the question. I actually don't have that information. I will refer the question to Indigenous Services Canada. There's about 2,600 companies on that list in various commodity areas.
Okay, I think we need to get further information at this committee or elsewhere about to what extent those companies should really qualify in terms of the actual objective of the policy, creating opportunities for Indigenous Canadians. Ms. Reza, I want to ask you about staff augmentation. You spoke at the Government Operations Committee about this. You said, quote, traditionally staff augmentation works in a similar manner where you bring in a temp agency and they're taking on the burden of finding the resources. There are many shops that do this across the system, so there are about 635 IT firms that provide staff augmentation resources. So Canadians have become familiar with three companies, Coradix, Dalian, and GC Strategies, that receive work and subcontract, often without providing any actual value themselves. But this is an incredible number. We're not just talking about three companies, 635 companies. So why is this practice of multi-level subcontracting so common that there are 635 different companies that are doing it?
Thank you very much for the question. First off, there's 635 companies that provide task-based IT professional services. So in terms of why there's so many, I mean, the Government of Canada has various priorities that need to be filled by niche skill sets on IT professionals. In terms of your question about
sorry, but just to clarify, these are folks doing staff augmentation, which you defined before the Government Operations Committee, not as doing the actual IT work, but as doing the work of finding people who can do the work. So why can't the Government of Canada just kind of maintain a database of external resources who have this expertise instead of going to 635 different companies to act as middlemen? Why can't they just keep a registry of those who are capable of doing the work to perform specific tasks? Right.
Thank you very much for the question. I think I received a similar question recently, and I think that the traditional model, if you permit, is like having a general contractor when you need to find somebody with a specific, an electrician or a certified plumber. So now what is being proposed is that we don't use that skill set that has been very helpful for us in the past to find the resources when we need to bring them in, regardless of whether it's IT or other staff augmentation, and to have a data set where we can type in and say, well, we need 5 IT engineers or 5 computer science graduates. And we're taking that on. We're looking at various elements, and I believe that we actually have a module that is a potential for us to be able to do that. But again, it's going to require a lot of administration now.
Well, just to clarify the question, though, I mean, I think the idea of having someone who has a general contracting function who oversees the process of finding those external resources necessary. I mean, someone needs to be in charge of the project, but I just don't understand why that general contracting function can't be a public servant. Why there can't be someone inside of government who has that skill set of knowing where these different resources are and being able to consult the appropriate database. And I do want to ask you specifically, how many of these 635 middlemen companies have 2 employees or less?
Thank you very much. I believe that is an outstanding question that we're working on. The list is publicly available, all the companies that are on it, but we're trying to work to provide the breakdown. Some of them are very large companies that are well known. Some of them are very small, as we've indicated.
Okay, so just to clarify, you are in the process of providing to this committee the details of how many employees each of those 635 companies have, and when can we expect that information?
I'm not sure if it's for this committee or OGO, and I know that we're looking at it. I'm just looking over here. Do we have further information?
I don't think we have further information to share right now. Just be careful.
Just to clarify, we would like that information at this committee as well. And if you can provide that, please. Do you agree to do that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, you finish your response, though,
No,
please?
that's fine. I just wanted to say also, we have to be careful not to paint all suppliers with the same brush, of these three companies. Some of them are
But they're all doing that staff
Mr. Genuis,
augmentation work of
Genuis,
subcontract.
Your time is up. Mr. Laporte, would you, if you'd like to finish your answer briefly, because time is elapsed. Go ahead.
Say that we have three companies that have been under the radar. We have to be careful because we have legit suppliers that provide truly value added to the government of Canada. So I would be careful before we have the evidence.
I kind of agree with this guy.
It's systemic that
but
we don't.
They are
paint
looking
all
into
these
it, which is
suppliers with the same
scary
brush. I
because
think we
if
just
there's
have to be mindful.
635, there's going to be more than 3 or
Mr.
4
Viva,
that
it's
are going
Ms.
to be under
Shanahan.
the red light.
You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.